Now, from CBS News Miami, this is Facing South Florida with Jim DeFede.
Welcome to Facing South Florida. I'm Jim DeFede. On today's show, we will talk to attorney John Morgan. Now, everyone knows John Morgan from his Morgan & Morgan TV commercials.
I'm John Morgan of Morgan & Morgan. As millions flock to the metaverse, many are experiencing unnecessary pain and suffering, terrible car crashes, frightening trip and falls, and on-the-job injuries. Our army of over 800 attorneys and 4,000 support staff have recovered billions for clients just like you.
Or from his many, many, many billboards across the country. But he is also known for one other thing: marijuana. In fact, he has been called Florida's pot daddy, as he funded and pushed the campaign for medical marijuana in Florida back in 2016. Now he is back advocating on behalf of Amendment 3, which would legalize marijuana for anyone over the age of 21. The amendment needs 60% to pass, and polls suggest it will be a close race. When I sat down with Morgan, I asked him why this amendment was needed.
It's for many, many reasons. First of all, almost all of America already has it. So why, one state, not the other? But the real compelling reasons are this. Number one, last year, 220,000 people got arrested for possession of marijuana, got arrested, went to jail, maybe didn't stay in jail, but 220,000 people. What happens when you're arrested is it goes on your record. When it goes on your record, when you apply to any school or grad school or the service or whatever, run a background, you're a criminal. You're a criminal. There's a disproportionate amount of criminals amongst blacks and browns. The poorer you are, the more susceptible you are to being arrested, and the less likely you are to get out. Now, they make a big deal. A lot of people aren't going there to prison. Prison's not the big issue. The big issue is your career, your life is ruined for nothing. So that's reason number one. And the second reason is it's the right thing to do. Look, marijuana is much better for your health even than anything to do with liquor, beer, booze, anything. Domestic violence comes out of alcohol. No domestic violence comes out of marijuana. It is pleasurable. I would much rather, which I do, take a gummy every night than have a couple of Maker's Marks. It's an herb that was put into earth by God for us, and it works. I don't know why it works. Aloe works. I don't know why aloe works, but it works. So to me, you've got something as simple as aloe, but yet is the Scheduled 1 narcotic. Cocaine's number 3. That's how you got to know. All these old men who made these rules don't know what they're talking about. They don't know the difference between heroin, marijuana, LSD, mushrooms. They don't know. So that's reason number 2. And the other reason is it's time that we unleash the economic benefits of marijuana. AI is going to take jobs. The tax base for marijuana could be huge. The jobs for marijuana could be huge, already are. Real estate values go up. Agriculture, this is a job stimulator, a tax collector.
Well, let me play devil's advocate there, because you hear the opponents saying that what this really is a bill designed to help a handful of large corporations that are pumping millions and tens of millions of dollars into this campaign for their own personal financial benefit and wealth down the long run, and that this really won't help individuals. And then we'll get to the issue, then I want to get to the issue of growing personal marijuana. But by tying it up with corporations, isn't this really just a bill designed to benefit already wealthy corporations?
Well, first of all, I am a capitalist with a capital C. I believe in capitalism. I'm happy that Amazon became who they are. I'm happy that Walmart became who they are. That's what makes America great, competition. Now, remember this, Jim. There are already 25 licenses in Florida right now. They only talk about one. They can all compete at the same level. Number two, DeSantis has 22 licenses just sitting there. All he's got to do is release them. And if you're mad about monopolies, ask yourself, and you viewers ask themselves this question: other than CVS, Walgreens, and Publix, name another pharmacy in Florida, please. Are we mad about that? Well, until we get as mad about Walgreens and CVS and Publix as we are about these 25 licenses and the 22 that are sitting on his desk, the only reason there's not more success is because of capitalism. The same reason that there's only a Walgreens and a CVS. Only the fittest survive. And I'm okay with that. It makes us better.
Why not have an amendment that would allow individuals to grow their own marijuana? Why do I have to buy from CVS or Walgreens, to use your analogy, if I'm able to produce what I need in my own basement or my backyard?
I couldn't agree more. And here's the thing. I saw DeSantis talking about people can't grow at home. Listen, dude, Governor, in the next session, all you got to do is make that part of your agenda. Let us grow it at home. Let us smoke it at home. Let us make brownies at home. But as you know, Jim, a constitutional amendment has to very narrow, single subject. You can't have, if you added home grow to this, your single subject's gone. It cost about $40 million now because they made it so hard to get on the ballot, just to get on the ballot and get to the Supreme Court. Why did they make it hard? Because they want to control the money. This is all about money. They want to control what they can dole out to their special interests, who will then give them campaign contributions. If DeSantis wants to get rid of the monopoly, release the other 22 licenses today. If DeSantis is worried about monopolies, when you come for session next time, let's let homegrown happen. Let's let everybody grow it at home. They should, but they won't. You know why? He doesn't really want it.
I've heard you talk about this before. You believe that part of the motivation is the pharmaceutical industry, the liquor industry, does not want to see this amendment pass because it could cost them financially by creating greater competition. And you think that's who DeSantis and the Republicans are responding to?
Well, let me just say this about that. 100%. DeSantis he governs by donation. He governs by donation. You know who's funding this opposition? This guy named Ken Griffin, the big hedge fund guy. And listen, he's from Daytona. And listen, I'm a big fan of Ken Griffin. This week, Ken Griffin bought tremendous amount of stock in look it up, Pfizer. The hedge funds has an interest in pharmaceuticals and liquor, a big interest, because they make money. The pharmaceutical industry is screwing America every day. Look what they pay for pharmaceuticals in Canada and what we pay here. They've got the monopoly of all monopolies.
As you mentioned Governor DeSantis a couple of times, I couldn't help but notice on my TV in the last couple of months, I've begun seeing public service announcements from the Florida Department of Transportation warning me of the evils of driving while high on marijuana. Is that a coincidence, you think, that I'm suddenly seeing those commercials?
He's using $18 million of taxpayer dollars to fight this constitutional amendment. Why? Because his big donors, the Ken Griffins, and listen, I don't have a problem with Ken Griffin doing what he's doing. He's trying to protect his investment. His investment faces a mortal threat from the marijuana industry. The same threat that trains posed to stagecoaches years ago. It's coming. It's coming. And so I think it is morally and ethically wrong for the governor to be using taxpayer money to fight something that most of them want.
How has Ron DeSantis, in your mind, changed over the last, 6 years since he first came into office?
Okay, ambition. When you run for president, you got to get a lot of money. The way you get a lot of money is you give a lot away and you make a lot of promises. And Ken Griffin doesn't just give Ron DeSantis a lot of money for no reason. And same for me. I don't give politicians money for no reason. I'm not going to be like this goody-goody saint. So that's why he's doing it. He got blindly ambitious. He got up ahead of his skis. I think he's making a mistake on this because I think Ron still would like to be president, but I think being against marijuana is going to come back and haunt him if he ever tries to run for a national office, because it's a dead dog loser issue-wise. Look, by the way, don't forget, guess who's for it? Donald J. Trump. He supports this. Guess who's for it? Joe Gruters, chairman of the state Republican Party. So this train is leaving the station.
Are you thinking of running for governor?
I've thought about it, but here's the way I think about it. I would think about it like this, only as an independent, because what I'd really like to test, because look, I've had 3 constitutional amendments. Marijuana, we got 60 something, then we got 73 and passed it, and then I passed the minimum wage. And then not me, but we passed the fair districts, and then we've passed felons'
Restoration of rights.
all of it. What that tells me, Jim, is that most of us, when you take the D away and the R away, most of us agree on most things. Most people are good, but if you put a D or an R about it, so I'd like to challenge that. I'd like to see it, unless there's somebody running I think would be better, I'd like to see what that's like. What would it be like to have a governor that cared about you and not about them? I don't need any more money. I wouldn't need money to run, thank God. I wouldn't ask for a penny if I ran. And I told Grady Judd, who I debated all the time in marijuana, I said, Grady wrote me, said, they say you're talking about running for governor. I said, Grady, I'll do it. And guess what? You're going to be my lieutenant governor, and we're going to run as an independent. He says, tell me when, coach.
When we come back, we turn our attention to a major school board race in Miami. Stay with us. Welcome back. A few weeks ago, I interviewed Martin Karp here on Facing. He is a former Miami-Dade school board member who is running to get back on the board. It was a rather contentious interview as Karp refused to answer some straightforward questions about his positions and his previous time on the board.
The body doesn't match the action. You have to have all 3 match because you vote on the action that's proposed. No, I would not vote against it or for it. I would vote to have the item. No, Jim, let me explain.
No, I got to move on.
No, I have to explain that. The action has to match it.
Yeah, that was special. Today, we are joined by his opponent in the race for School Board District 3, which covers Northeast Dade all the way down to Coconut Grove, former State Representative Joe Geller. Joe, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
So, I want to sort of go through a number of things with you, but I want to start with what that exchange that I was having with Martin Karp at the time was over whether or not the school board should recognize Gay Pride Month, whether or not they should celebrate that throughout the district. There was a measure that was going to be appearing on the school board just a couple days later, and I couldn't really get a clear answer as to how he was going to vote. How would you have voted on that measure?
I would have voted yes on it, and in fact, I went down to the school board for the 2nd year in a row and spoke in favor of it. I think it's important. That's about teaching history, and we should be teaching accurate history and not this extremist agenda that says we should teach fake history. As a former history major, I find it very disturbing.
All right, now let's take a step back for a second. Why are you running? Why are you doing this?
Well, first of all, because my only child is 17, and she's a senior in high school, and right now the school, for the last number of years, the school district seems pretty important to me. And I also don't like the direction that they've been moving. Again, they're trying to put in this extremist agenda. They're banning books. I mean, I never thought I'd see that. Florida's #1 in banning books. They say, oh, we're not banning them. We're just taking them off the shelves and putting them someplace where the kids can't get them. Well, to me, that's the same thing. We shouldn't be banning books. We shouldn't be victimizing vulnerable populations of kids. We should be protecting those kids, and we should teach real history, and we need to keep this right-wing extremist politics out of our school board. We never had that.
So what Governor DeSantis and the Republicans in the legislature would say is the reason they passed some of these laws is because they want to give parents more say in the education process. They want to have parents be able to object to certain books that they think may be in the library and have them pulled while they're reviewed. What's wrong with having more parental involvement on that level in education?
Look, I fought some of these things as a member of the legislature as they were coming along. I served on the Education Committee. I was the ranking member on the K-12 subcommittee, but I fought these things up there. They're wrong. I'm for parental involvement, but my wife put it very well when she said, it's okay for somebody else if they want to have theirs, but what about our rights as parents? One parent shouldn't be able to dictate to the entire class of parents and all of the students. You have to balance those rights so that everybody can be heard, not just the loudest voice.
All right. What are some of the issues in education that you want to sort of address? And I want to say, I guess maybe the first thing I want you to address is Martin Karp is a former teacher. He spent a long time in the school district. He was a former school board member. So why do you believe you're better suited than someone who actually worked as a teacher and served previously on the school board? What makes you in a better position?
A couple of things, Jim. First of all, as you pointed out in your interview, there was an issue with Martin's previous service. I'm not going to get into the details, but there's an Inspector General's report. You put it online. I urge people to read it that found that he and his office exposed kids to an unsafe condition. Happens that my own daughter was at the school, that one of the two schools that was involved in that. So that's number one. Number two, I served on the Education Committee, as I said, and was ranking member on K-12 subcommittee. Also, all these funding issues that we're facing came through the legislature, and we need to have people on the school board that can help push back against this and get the money that we need. Our particular Dade County is victimized by things like the district cost differential that I worked with for years there, the FEFP, the funding program, but also because when you look at who is supporting us, who's supporting him and who's supporting me as the Democrat in this race, and Marty switched and became a different party, I don't think he's in sync with what the parents, the students, and for that matter, the teachers for this district want. He's out of step. It's an extremist agenda, and we need to get this extremist politics out of our school district and go back to teaching kids and protecting them.
Now, technically, this is a nonpartisan race. You don't have an R or a D next to your name. He doesn't have an R next to his name. You know, that's true.
Yes.
But you believe that this is a fight that should be waged on a partisan level?
You know, I think that's not the only issue, but I don't think people should be blind to that. Okay, when you look at who supports people, when you look at where they're likely to vote, particularly if you can't get a straight answer out of somebody, you have to know what they're likely to do. I'll say flat out, look, if the people in this district don't agree with the positions I have, they should vote for someone else. That's democracy. I'm okay with that, but I intend to tell people clearly and accurately what I stand for without equivocation, and if that's what they want, they should vote for me. If they want an end to this injection of extremist politics in our school board, they should vote for me. And yes, I'm a Democrat, a lifelong Democrat. I haven't switched. I don't like what I'm seeing coming from the other side, and I make no bones about it.
So you've used the word extremist a number of times, but yet Miami-Dade School District is considered an A district, does very well. So maybe the recipe that you're seeing from the school board, which you're absolutely right, does have several conservatives on it, some liberals and independents. You know, maybe that's not such a bad thing what's happening right now in the school board.
We have an A-performing district. Look, frankly, I was never a big fan of those rankings of districts anyway. It's great to say that across the district we have teachers that are dedicated, who are doing a great job. We have parents that are nurturing their children, and we have great kids. But the fact of the matter is, the fact that the district is A doesn't mean there aren't problems, and there aren't kids who are being left behind, but I still firmly believe that banning books is always going to be wrong, and teaching fake history is always going to be wrong, and targeting kids instead of making them feel loved and inclusive and protected is always going to be wrong. I'm glad we're doing well, but we can do better.
So what areas would you want to improve on?
Well, I'll start with those. I'll start with keeping politics out. I'll also start with the fact that when you look at it, we're spending an awful lot of money, which I'm glad of. I mean, we need to target. We are 50th in this state, is my understanding, in teacher pay. We need to raise teacher pay. We need to devote more money to mental health resources. Maybe we can find some way to, not have quite as many, I don't want to use the word, let's just say high-level, high-paid staff in the district. We need to put some of that money towards protecting kids. We should have a nurse or a paramedic at every school. I was an early supporter of school resource officers before Parkland happened.
Well, let me jump in and ask you, Broward County has started a program of putting metal detectors in schools. Miami-Dade County has chosen not to do so. They don't believe that it's effective. Do you have an opinion as to whether or not schools should have metal detectors, particularly the high schools?
I'm an opinionated guy, Jim. I don't think we need metal detectors in Dade County. I don't criticize Broward. They have different circumstances, and I recognize that. I do think it's important that we narrow access to schools, but if you're going to have one place where all the kids get in, and they've all got to go through a metal detector, and they've all got to be searched, you're going to take tremendous time away from the instructional day because you're going to have huge backlogs. I support armed school police. We're unique because we have our own police force. We also have security guards that also work for the school system. So, as I said, I was an early supporter. In fact, they adopted my plan when didn't say, oh, that was what Joe Geller had introduced. But that's fine. It got done. Doesn't matter who got the credit. So I think that it's important that we keep kids safe. That's a priority. I don't think we need metal detectors here in Dade County.
Joe, let me ask you this. I mean, you're coming in basically saying that the school district is overly politicized, that we have an extremist agenda on certain members of the school board. I'm curious, how will you be able to work with them? If you get on the board and you have 3 or 4 members, some of whom are DeSantis appointees, some of whom who are running on a conservative agenda, how are you going to end up being effective in working with them?
Well, there's 2 answers to that. Right now, it's a 5-4 conservative majority. Okay, and if this seat were to flip, it would be even more in that direction. I don't think that this seat's going to flip. I'm hopeful that I can hold it. But on top of that, my reputation in Tallahassee was someone who never attacked people based on who they were. Never called people stupid, crooked, or traitors. I talked about issues. I always tried to address them in an intellectual and good way. And I'm confident that I can work with anybody on that board for the good of our kids.
I got to jump in, and that's our time. Joe Geller, thank you very much for coming in. We'll be right back after the break. If you have any thoughts or comments, feel free to contact me at jdefeaty@cbs.com. I do enjoy hearing from you. Well, that's all the time we have. We'll be back again next week. Thanks again for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.